Training with the Canada Job Grant. My name is Pam McGuire, and I will be presenting today along with Jaylene Lum from Global Knowledge Canada. But before we get started, I'd just like to review a few housekeeping items and let you know how you can participate. This webinar is being recorded. We will provide you with a link to the recording as soon as it's available. You have joined today's webinar listening through your computer speaker system by default. If you would prefer to use your telephone, just locate your audio pane and select telephone. The dial-in information and access code will then be displayed. Attendees will be in listen-only mode, and we invite you to ask questions about the presentation using the questions pane. Just type in your question and click send. At the end of the webinar, we will do a question and answer session, and we'll take as many questions as possible. So I'd like to provide some background on Jaylene and I. Jaylene, who is actually sitting right here with me, has been in the learning and development field as an instructor, a business manager, and now a project manager for more than 15 years at Global Knowledge. I'm also with Global Knowledge, and I've spent much of my career in technology-based organizations in roles in product management, training, and marketing. And for the past 2 years, we've both been working with our clients to help educate and secure funding through the Canada Job Grant. And we're very happy to be sharing our knowledge with you today. So for the next 30 minutes, we'll cover off, really what you need to know to kickstart your training with the Canada Job Grant, especially as you start planning for 2017. But to start it off, we'd like to share with you some trends we're seeing around really the importance of skills development and training, especially during these transformative times. So let's begin with skills development training, skills development trends. The fourth industrial revolution is here, and this is according to the World Economic Forum, the Future of Jobs report, just released this past fall. And they're saying that we are at the beginning of a very profound change in our, not just technology, but our society. And this is going to have, and it's already had, a huge impact on jobs. And we've all seen the effects of new business models with, the classic examples of, organizations such as Airbnb disrupting industry, enabled by disruptive technology. And what this report is saying, with new technologies such as artificial intelligence and 3D printing, this trend is going to continue. But what's really important, and I think really important for all of us now, is that this change is happening at a pace we've never seen before. In previous times, we've had time to predict, to plan, and to adjust. And now the technology and society is changing, despite often what businesses can plan for and react to. So it's so critical, and it's so important to take control of your skills and your skills development, as you continue in the workforce. So what is the new normal in our world, if there is a new normal? Gartner says that literally every company will be an IT company and every little leader a digital leader. And I like this quote because it puts a bit of a time frame on it, and it says to all of us that our organization is going to become digital. And we're seeing that particularly in even our own industry, in the training industry, as many of our products are digitized, our labs are digitized, and we are embracing it, and we all need to embrace this change. The pace of change has created a skills gap. Now, everyone on this webinar will have a slightly different take on, on the change in your own industry, but the message really applies to almost all of us, is that the pace is fast, and it is creating, a sense of urgency and not be complacent. What does that mean for Canada? The Information Communication and Technology Council, the ICTC, predicts that there will be a skills gap in the ICT workers, for ICT workers of over 200,000 ITC workers by 2020. And that's in various areas such as programming, system analysts, software engineers, And this is a direct result of the changes of the digital change of the fourth industrial revolution that we're talking about in our society. And if you read through the report, you will see that there's a strong desire to keep jobs in Canada and not to go the route of outsourcing. There's also a strong desire to train the younger generation to move into IT and to keep, our current IT and our technology workforce and all of our workforce current. So, how important is training and skills development? Well, just a few stats from the IDC market and their education department. 1 hour of training prevents 5 hours of lost productivity. I think we've all been there. I've been there trying to use Excel. I know what that means. I can tell you firsthand. Second, untrained staff requires 6 times more support than trained staff. And in this world, when it's no longer necessarily hierarchically, everyone has to take control and support themselves, this is really relevant. And if you look at organizations with a strong learning culture, 37% are more likely to be first to market. 34% are able to respond to customer needs, and 26% have greater ability to deliver quality products. This is huge when it comes to being agile and adaptive in a market that's rapidly changing. So it's clear building new skills is a top driver, specifically for professional development. But lack of budget gets in the way. And this is, I think this is probably understood by most people, but when we surveyed our various clients in Canada and US and around the world, this is what our clients are telling us across the board from our Global Knowledge, Skills and Salary Survey in 2016. Skills is an important component, but it's tough to find the budget. So given that what we've just talked about, this pace of change, we simply can't afford not to train people. You can't afford not to be trained. Not only does Canada, need this, but you need it. And the good news for all of us is that the federal government has had the foresight to help boost training for employers. And this is actually unique. We're one of the few countries have a broad-based program that does support employers. So we really encourage everyone to understand it and see how you can use it. So next up is Jaylene, and she's going to give you more information on the Canada Job Grant and really how you can take advantage of it and how you can start your training. So I'm going to hand it over to Jaylene at this point.
Thanks, Pam. So as Pam mentioned, the remaining part of this presentation will focus on the Canada Job Grant, which really does allow organizations to focus on skills development, even if they don't have a big budget to work with. Now, our president, Lawrence Franco, is recognizing that this is a real critical time, and the impact of this fourth industrial revolution that Pam was referring to is very real. Building the skills needed within organizations is going to be crucial in ensuring that the Canadian workforce will be strong and viable over the coming years. The Canada Job Grant is going to give companies the boost that they need in skills development without spending the big budgets. We're all very enthusiastic about this program here at Global Knowledge. We've made it a focus to help as many of our clients as possible to obtain this funding. So let's step back a bit and just start at the beginning to understand where this job grant is coming from. We've shown you some of the predictions in previous slides on the lack of positions that are available to fill the 218,000 IT jobs that will be created by 2020. That same report indicates that if Canada does not address the talent and skills gap, it could cost the country billions of dollars in lost productivity, tax revenues, and gross domestic product. So this is a real serious concern. The Canadian government recognized that the employers and the workforce must remain competitive in a rapidly changing global economy. And the Canada Job Grant program was developed to address the country's need for innovation and digital skills transformation, as well as other industry-specific challenges identified by the individual provinces. So Canada's competitiveness really depends on that skill levels of our workforce. So this is a federally inspired program. introduced in 2014. I say federally inspired, but the provincial governments do have a lot of say regarding the way the money is used, and they also contribute an amount to the grant. It's designed for employers who need to train new or existing employees for new skills, and the key point here is the employer's part. It's not something that an employee can actually apply for this grant. It has to come from the organization itself, from the top levels of the organization. It's essentially a contract between the business and the provincial federal government. So it's really important to kind of understand that kind of contract that you're engaging in. It's available to any private or not-for-profit organization, but it's not available to publicly funded organizations such as municipal, provincial, federal organizations or agencies where much of the funding does come from the government. There's a lot of money involved here. There's $500 million in funding each year for the next 6 years. It's a total of $3 billion, and that's about till the year 2020. The budgets are released every April 1st. And they're supported, the training itself is supported by private training vendors, community colleges, career colleges, trade union centers, that type of thing. Now in most provinces, each employee can have up to $15,000 of training every year if approved, in which $10,000 of that is the government contribution and $5,000 is the employer contribution. In most provinces, the federal and provincial governments will cover 2/3 of those training costs. Some of the maritime provinces have a 50-50 split on the employer versus government contribution, and some provinces have incentives for companies that have less than 51 employees. Just as a couple of examples, if you take a look at Nova Scotia, for example, if the company has less than 51 employees, the first application is essentially free training if the application is for an amount between $5,000 and $10,000. And then the next application that they submit would be a 50-50 split. In a lot of the provinces like Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and the Yukon, the incentives for the companies of 50 employees or less is actually 5/6 of the training cost instead of 2/3. So there's some advantages definitely to some of the smaller companies and getting this Canada Job Grant. There are generally 3 different categories that are covered in all the provinces. They might not be word for word what we have here, but essentially this is what it boils down to. We've got career development, maintenance or refresher, and the essential skills. So I'm going to start with the career development and explain what each one kind of boils down to. The career development is a career path move that could lead to greater responsibilities or a higher position, higher pay in the company. It's highly favorable within the training with the government. When the government looks at this in most provinces, this is kind of what the Canada Job Grant is based on, is getting people into higher positions and better positions and responsibilities within the company. But there's also maintenance or refresher skills training, and those are new workplace methods and information training. It's an upgrade of skills, but doesn't necessarily mean that an employee will move into a better position within the company. The priority for either of these categories is going to be given to employees who are at risk of being laid off or are going from part-time positions to full-time positions due to training, that kind of thing. So those are the 2 main ones. The third one there is the essential skills, and that's basic skills needed for work. So learning in life, things like that. English as a second language would be an example of a basic skill that would be needed. Now here at Global Knowledge, we focus on the first 2, the career development or the maintenance or refresher type training. I can share some of the more specific insights on how the Canada Job Grant has been used with Global Knowledge in the past couple of years. We've actually processed hundreds of applications, successful applications that have gone through, and we find that the organizations that have benefited the most from the Canada Job Grant are typically your small, medium businesses. And from the successful grants that we've processed, about 87% of those are coming from small, medium businesses. So typically we find that our Ontario, British Columbia, and Saskatchewan clients have really taken advantage of the grant. You'll also notice that our most requested classes for the Canada Job Grant are some of our more technical ones like the Microsoft IT courses, security, and Cisco. That makes up about 60% of what we've seen so far, which isn't really surprising when you're thinking about the digital skills gap that we were talking about earlier. These courses are often more expensive than other IT courses, so that the Canada Job Grant would definitely have a positive impact on a training budget, where an employer wouldn't consider this type of training in the past due to budget constraints. About 26% of the training falls under our business skills training, such as business analysts and project management and ITIL classes. This isn't all that surprising either when you consider where the trends are going in the IT field. You know, your security, cloud, mobile application development, big data trends, things like that. If an organization is looking at any of these, it often requires a business analyst and or project manager to help initiate these big implementations. So that's kind of some of the background that we've found in the last little while with the Canada Job Grant, where typical businesses are going. And I'm going to get more specific into the application process itself here. Based on what we've seen from province to province, we've kind of pulled together, you know, the commonalities between each province, what happens before you apply, the application process, the training and reimbursement, and then the final steps. So I'm going to start from scratch here, right from the before you apply, what you need to kind of think about. And of course, each province has different requirements. I'll kind of mention a few of those as we're going through, but for the most part, you know, it is important to kind of know what your province is looking for, but this is the basics on a high level here. So before you apply, it's really important, of course, to identify the training needs for each of your employees. You know, who needs the training most, how many employees you have that are going to do the same type of training, when is that training going to occur, those types of things need to kind of first be answered. You select a training provider, a qualified training provider like Global Knowledge. Training cannot be done in-house. So if you have someone that could actually train your employees, it isn't actually applicable to this Canada Job Grant. It has to be a third party that does this training for you. So you go to the third party or the training provider, such as Global Knowledge. You receive a quote for the training plan and some information about when those courses are and where you can get those courses, whether they're virtual or in class or a dedicated class for your company. You choose training dates that are at least, I would say, 45 to 60 days out. Most provinces, I would say at least 30 days is kind of their minimum. In Ontario, they say that they'll usually have something within 12 business days as far as an approval process back to you, but we've seen anything from 5 business days to a month and a half as far as that goes. So it just depends on how busy it is at any given point as to when you'll get that application process back. So make sure you choose a date far enough out that you could actually move with it when the application gets approved. So the application process itself, you're going to complete and save the application form, submit that application to a designated service provider or provincial ministry office. Then when you receive the approval and the reference number from the service provider or ministry office, depending on the province, you can either register for your class at that point or take the class at that point. Some provinces allow you to actually register for the class as soon as you submit the application form, whereas others require you to have that approval before you actually register for the class. In all the provinces, you are going to have to fill out a participant registration form, so you will need to know who those people are that are going to be taking that training. But that is going to be different, again, from province to province. Some of them require that participant registration form with the application. Others only require it once the application is approved. So the training and reimbursement, once you get approved for that training, then you can pay for the training, complete and save the reimbursement form. And then you're going to include all those original receipts and submit all those forms and receipts to the ministry office. They're also going to likely have you do an electronic funds transfer form so that the money will go directly into an account. And at that point, once you submit that information, you'll either receive a full or partial reimbursement from the province. So that, again, varies by province. Some provinces will give you 85% up front, 50% up front, 100% up front, depends on the province. And then after the actual training occurs, you get that second part of that reimbursement, whether it be the 15% or the 50%, or if you've received all 100%, you won't be receiving anything after the training. That's pretty much the final steps. Once the employee actually receives the training and obtains a training certificate or a credential, that information is sent to the ministry or to the provincial office. And a completion form is usually sent with that, and the remaining reimbursement, of course, comes through at that point. Some provinces will actually have you do another form or an evaluation, a questionnaire a year after the training has taken place, just to see where that particular employee is. So that's the whole process in general as far as that goes. Like I said, each province has its own processes, but for the most part, that's kind of a big overview of it all. So the recommendations for your company, we're at a point right now where it's a really good idea to start looking at your training needs for 2017-2018. So the funding, as I said earlier, is renewed April 1st. So once you get back from your Christmas break, you can start to take a look at, what's out there and what your employees are going to want to look at as far as upgrading their training or going into a different level of training, that type of thing. You're going to create those plans on a provincial level, and Global Knowledge, of course, can help you put those together in a training plan. And a lot of the information that the government is going to be asking for are, of course, things like identifying the courses and the number of participants, the priorities and the type of training, whether it's going to be that career development training or those new methods and technology type training. So those are the types of things that you're going to have to look at as far as that application form itself specifically. And when you fill out your application form, you're likely going to have a lot of information pulled from your HR department or your finance department. Canada Revenue Agency numbers are one thing that's going to be required in Ontario. Corporate access numbers are the types of things that are going to be requested in the Western provinces. A lot of HR information you'll need to have for your application. So again, like I said before, this is really a contract between the employer and the government, and it's the employer putting this together. Your employees will have no idea as to what those particular fields are going to be, or the answers are to those particular fields. So it does have to be done from a high level in your organization. There's a finite budget allocated to the program each year, and it's really wise to act now and take advantage of it. There's a couple of ways to look at this point right now. Saskatchewan and Manitoba have both run out of funding for 2016. So for those provinces, you're going to be looking at, a forward thinking what's going to happen in that new budget that comes down on April 1st and how you can take advantage of the Saskatchewan and Manitoba budgets for the Canada Job Grant. For some of the other provinces, they haven't run out of funding, and they may have excess funds right now available that they're wanting to get rid of because of the fact that, if you don't use it, you lose it for the next funding pot. So, in Ontario and BC has some rules as to when you can actually apply as far as, if you're looking for training right now, it has to be between January and March, and then when you're hitting that January type date there, you're looking out to April to June, that type of thing. So they've kind of got a very specific phasing process for those grants. But with Ontario, for example, you can pretty much apply anytime and maybe get some of those funds that are still out there before the new funding is renewed April 1st. Now, as far as Global Knowledge goes, our value that we offer with this, our program, our GK Job Grant program, is in place to really increase the probability of clients successfully obtaining grants. The first year we worked with this program, the Ontario Ministry offices indicated that they were rejecting 50% of the applications that were coming through, mostly because they weren't filled out properly. So we've done hundreds of these applications. We know what the government's looking for. We can be that kind of second set of eyes and increase the probability of being a successful applicant. So we're here to help simplify the application process by providing dedicated staff to assist with the applications and helping clients strategize and identify their training needs in regards to the Canada Job Grant program. We're kind of a one-stop source for all the provincial programs. We've got a full course catalog that goes nationwide. If you're a national company, we can help you determine what you need to do on a province-by-province basis. And we're really equipped with the tools and the relationships to help streamline that application process. Now, just a quick recap of what we've talked about today. Pam started us off by talking about that fourth industrial revolution and how important it is for organizations to understand how digital disruption is affecting their business. With the rapidly changing economy, it will be essential for businesses to really identify how they're going to evolve and what skills are needed to keep up with these changes. To help facilitate the need for new skills in an organization, there's a Canada Job Grant, and that will help and allow you to take the needed training and stretch out those training budget dollars. You'll need to strategize on what your training needs are for 2017, along with your goals and objectives. And you'll want to contact Global Knowledge to help put those plans into action and then complete the application process and take advantage of this program. So really, don't delay. Do this today. Get a start on what you need for your 2017 training needs. I've kind of listed here some of our information. We've got an email address You're welcome to send us an email if you do have questions. It's canadajobgrants.ca@globalknowledge.com, or there's a website, www.globalknowledge.ca/CanadaJobGrant. And of course, we're able to take questions right now. If you have put any questions into the questions panel, I have Matthew, our marketing guy here. He's going to tell us what's going on, and if you have any questions, we'll answer those right now.
Thank you, Janie. Yeah, so we've had a couple of questions come in. The first question we have is, if I'm an entrepreneur or sole proprietor, can I apply for the Canada Job Grant myself?
That is a really good question. With that particular bit of information there, it really depends on the province. So in, for example, British Columbia, Saskatchewan, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, PI, yeah, you can actually apply for the Canada Job Grant as a sole proprietor. If you're working for yourself, you're on contract, you can actually apply. Most of them have kind of a some kind of caveat, like you have to be registered for over a year, or have to make show that you have this much in your accounts as far as revenue throughout the year, whatever else. Alberta, Ontario, that is not an option. It is based on the company itself, and it has to have, you as a sole proprietor or an entrepreneur, you cannot apply for training for yourself. But the other provinces that I'd mentioned, you could actually get training for yourself through the Canada Job Grant.
And the next question we have is, what if I have employees in multiple provinces?
That's another good question. So one of the things that I think I mentioned a little bit about in the presentation is that each of the provinces have different application forms, and it's really going to be dependent upon which province your employee is in. So if you have multiple provinces, even if your head office is, say, in Alberta, and you have employees in Ontario and Nova Scotia, you would actually have to fill out an application form for those employees that are in that particular province. So the application form would come out of Ontario and, say, Nova Scotia or Manitoba, even though your head office is in, say, Alberta. So that is something that we can help you with. Like I said, all the provinces have different application forms, and they're all pretty much online, but we could help you go through that process and set you up with each of the different locations that you have.
And the next question we have is Quebec within the program?
Very good question. And yes, that is not an option for Quebec. With Quebec, they've actually done something a little bit different in the Canada Job Grant. They still do get funds, but they treat it a little bit differently than the rest of the provinces. So in Quebec, the training system is different, and it concentrates mostly on training for unemployed individuals or individuals looking to upgrade their skills, whereas the rest of the provinces focus on the employer upgrading their workforce's skill sets. So unfortunately, because of this, Global Knowledge is unable to be a training provider for the Quebec grant at this time, because we are a business-to-business type of organization. So if you're unemployed in Quebec, then the Canada Job Grant would apply to you, but not for the companies themselves.
And then the last question we have is, will the website tell us specific requirements for each province?
You can go to the federal government site, which will have a list of the provinces. We do have on our website the provinces listed that will give you a little bit of information. It's not the full amount of information. As you can imagine, there are a lot of caveats for every single province. We can help you through that. We have the information available. We can take you through step by step on the province that you're looking at. But yes, the Canada Job Grant, the federal government has the provinces specifically set up. Some of the provinces don't have any information online. I think Northwest Territories, they don't show anything for Canada Job Grant. And actually this morning Saskatchewan site was down, but usually, like I said, the Manitoba and Saskatchewan, they don't have any funding, so they kind of, they don't have a lot of detail on their site, and they come back in April basically. So yes, we can certainly give you more information. The website and the email address that I have up on the screen right now, you can go to those two areas. You can ask specific questions for the email, and the website itself will give you a little bit of information as to the contributions that the government will offer from one province to another.
That's all the questions we have.
Okay. Great. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. We hope you have a great holiday season, and if you have any questions at all that come out of this, please feel free to contact us directly at that email address. Have a great day, everyone.